My name's Esme. I'll be your host this evening, and I just want to say a quick thank you for coming to Book Passage to join us, welcoming Annie Barrows, author of the Ivy and Bee. And just a quick thing before we start, if any of the kids would like to come sit on the floor at the front so you can be closer, don't be shy, you're welcome to. That way you'll be able to see the pictures better. And that comes directly from Annie, so it's a good idea.
One moment, please. I'll first have to drink lots of water. Okay. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be with you in a minute. Look at that stack. I know, lots of books. Okay. Okay, now I'm here. So what Esme said is absolutely 100% true. I am Annie Barrows. And that means that I am the author of Ivy and Bean, exactly right. Now, I figured that you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't know anything about Ivy and Bean, but just in case somebody might need a little bit of refresher course on Ivy and Bean facts. This person here is Ivy, and this person here is Bean. And before they met each other, they did not like each other, not at all, not even a tiny bit, because Ivy's the kind of person who likes to read great big books, and Bean's the kind of person who likes to run around and yell and scream and fall out of trees and stomp in puddles. So before they met, Bean thought that it was possible that Ivy was the most boring kid in the entire world. But then, one day, everything changed. That's a day when Bean was having some trouble with her older sister, Nancy, and she decided that she needed to run away from home. She ran around in Cape Court, where she lived, and found herself in front of Ivy's house. She and Ivy got to talking, and that's when she discovered that Ivy was practicing to be a witch when she grew up. This was a lot more interesting than Bean had expected. And the two girls decided that really the solution to all of Bean's problems would be for them to cast a spell on Bean's older sister, Nancy, a spell that would make her dance uncontrollably for the rest of her life. Now, those of you who have read this book know that this did not turn out the way they expected. But there were worms, there was mud, Nancy freaked out completely, so this was a very good day. And after that day, Ivy and Bean were the best of friends. They were the best of friends in the second book, Ivy and Bean and the Ghost That Had to Go. This concerns a haunted bathroom at the girls' school. In the third book, Ivy and Bean Break the Fossil Record, all the kids in Ivy and Bean's second grade classroom are trying to break world's records. And mostly they're just hurting themselves. The fourth book, Ivy and Bean Take Care of the Babysitter, is based on an awful thing I once did to my babysitter. The fifth book, Ivy and Bean Bound to Be Bad. This is about a day when the girls decide to be really, really good. Good in their innermost souls, good in their hearts, pure of thought and deed, so good that if an animal looks into their eyes, that animal will love them and follow them around for the rest of their lives. This does not actually pan out. The sixth book, Ivy and Bean, Doomed to Dance, is about ballet and squids. The seventh book, Ivy and Bean, What's the Big Idea, is about a time when the girls solved the problem of global warming. The eighth book, Ivy and Bean, No News is Good News, is about money and cheese. Cheese. Cheese, very word. The ninth book, Ivy and Bean Make the Rules, is about a day when Ivy and Bean make the rules. But I'm not going to talk about those books. Those are the old books. And I happen to have here with me today the very new, the only published this week, the freshly shipped from China, the now winging its way across this fine nation to bookstores everywhere, 10th book in the Ivy and Bean series, Ivy and Bean Take the Case. Now, here is my plan. My immediate plan is to take a sip of water. Shortly after that, my plan is to read to you from this book, because this is sort of like, story hour. I'm not going to read all of this book, because we are busy, busy people. I'm going to read a little bit of this book. Then, if anybody has any questions, I will answer them. And then we'll proceed to the signing piece of the festivities, okay? So, I think I'll read now. Are you ready? If you find yourself possessed of a really pressing question in the middle of the part when I'm reading, hang on to that thought and ask me during the question time, okay? Ivy and Bean, Take the Case. Chapter 1, Black and white and tough all over. Bean was not allowed to watch television or music videos. Bean's mom said she could watch 2 movies a week, but they had to be movies where everyone was good. There could not be any bad words. There could not be any mean people. There could not be anyone smoking a cigarette or wearing tiny clothes. There were only about 10 movies that followed all of these rules, but luckily Bean liked all 10 of them. She watched them over and over. Bean's mom said that 10 movies were plenty. She said kids Bean's age should be using their imaginations instead of watching television. She said fresh air was more important than movies. And then what did she do? She made Bean watch a movie. It was her favorite movie, she said. Everyone should see it at least once, she said. The movie was called 7 Falls, but it wasn't about waterfalls or even the leaf falling kind of fall, which was what Bean had guessed. It was about a guy named Al 7. Boy, was he tough. He was so tough, he talked without moving his lips, and some of it was bad words. He was also a little bit mean. Everyone in the movie was a little bit mean, plus they all smoked cigarettes. They didn't wear tiny clothes, but that was the only rule they didn't break. I can't believe you're letting me watch this, said Bean. 7 Falls is a classic, said Bean's mom. It is one of the greatest movies ever made. Don't be a stooge, said Al 7 to another movie guy. That was pretty mean. But Bean pretended not to notice because this was one of the greatest movies ever made. Al 7 was also in black and white, but Bean knew that she was supposed to imagine that he was in color. What is it about dames? Al 7 asked, walking slowly down a rainy street. They break your heart, I guess, he answered himself. That was the end. Bean's mom let out a big, happy sigh. Wasn't that amazing? Did you get it? Get what? Bean wasn't sure, but she nodded. I'm gonna be just like Al 7 when I grow up, she said. Her mother raised one eyebrow. You had better not be. But then again, why wait? Thought Bean, she could start being like Al 7 right now. She slumped over and put her feet up on the coffee table. What do you say we watch it again, pal? Her mom raised both eyebrows. What I say is don't call me pal and take your feet off the table. That hadn't worked. Bean took her feet off the table. Dames, she said sadly, they break your heart. Her mom's eyebrows were almost inside her hair. Oh dear, she said. It took Bean a long time to go to sleep that night. She couldn't stop thinking about Al 7 and his black and white world. It didn't seem like the real world, the one that on Pancake Court that Bean lived in. People in Al 7's world were tough. They didn't laugh very much. They didn't do normal stuff like go to the school and the grocery store. They walked down alleys. They wore hats. But the most unnormal thing about Al 7's world were the mysteries. There were mysteries all over the place. Bean untwisted her pajamas and thought about that. A mystery was a question that you couldn't find the answer to. In Al 7's world, the mysteries were things like, who took Hester's jewels? Where was Sammy LaBarba on the night of May 12th? Bean did not have any jewels, and she sure as heck did not know anyone named Sammy LaBarba, but there were plenty of questions she didn't have the answers to, millions of them. For instance, who thought of money? Now, not even the grown-ups knew the answer to that question, but Bean had other questions too, like, what's inside the cement thing in the front yard? What's behind the Tang's fence, and why do they lock it up? And what's the matter with the mailman? When she asked these questions, her parents usually said something like, that's none of your business. That meant that there was an answer, but they didn't want her to know it. Bean smiled toughly at her dark ceiling. They didn't want her to know things. Just like Sammy LaBarba didn't want Al 7 to know where he was on the night of May 12th. But Al 7 had figured it out because he was a private investigator. Private investigators got to the bottom of mysteries. They solved them. They snuck around. They spied. They asked the hard questions, and then they sat in their cars and rubbed their faces until they came up with the answers. And then they walked down alleys in the rain. That is what Bean was going to do first thing tomorrow morning. None of your business, she muttered. Ha! Oh. Chapter 2. Pierre Vaught Instigator. Al 7 had a cool office with his name on the door. Bean could do that easy peasy. She began with the desk. Bean had a good board, and she had 2 triangle things called sawhorses, even though they looked nothing at all like horses. She put the sawhorses on the front lawn and the board on top of the sawhorses. Desk. The spinny chair was a little harder. Bean had to yank it up the basement stairs. Yank, yank, yank. Just when she got to the top, it fell back down most of the stairs. It was already broken, but it was a lot more broken after it fell down the stairs. What the heck are you doing, Bean? Called her father from the kitchen. I'm trying to get this chair up the stairs, shouted Bean. Do you want some help? Bean thought about that. Al 7 had a helper, a lady named Dolly. Mostly Dolly lit Al's cigarette, but Bean figured she would have carried a chair if Al had asked her to. Yes, please. Her dad came down to the basement and carried the spinny chair up the stairs. He even carried it out to the front yard. Thanks, pal, said Bean. Her dad said, don't call me pal, you're welcome. Bean put the chair behind the desk and sat in it. She spun around. Pretty good, but she wasn't done yet. She needed to look tough. She needed to look tough enough to solve a mystery. She needed a hat. She was pretty sure that there was one upstairs in the closet full of things that no one wanted. And she was right. On the very highest shelf of things that no one wanted, covered in dust, was a hat. It was sort of grayish, sort of brownish, smelled a little funny. When Bean put it on, she could hardly see. It was sort of dangerous walking around in that hat, but Al 7 said, "Danger makes me laugh." While Bean was climbing down from the shelf, she found something she hadn't expected. Something great. It was a telephone, an old one with 2 parts and a cord. Perfect! Al 7 was always slamming the phone down on people. Bean slammed the phone down a few times to test it. "So long, pal," she whispered. With a hat on her head and the phone under her arm, Bean went downstairs to her mom's recycling bin. Bean's mom's recycling bin was always full of important-looking papers. Papers with rubber stampings all over them. Papers with typing in 3 different colors. Papers with sticky notes. Today was a good day in the bin. Papers were spilling out the sides. Also big envelopes. Also file folders. What a haul! Bean gathered the papers and stuffed them under her arm. With her hat on her head and the phone under her other arm, Bean went outside. And those of you who are following along the text are going to see that I just skipped a whole bunch of stuff. Bean was a good artist. She could draw nice stuff, like flowers and cute bugs and dancing bagels. But she could also draw serious stuff, like science pictures and pyramids. Her sign was serious. She wanted it to look like a real grown-up sign. Al 7 sign said, Al 7, private investigator. Bean wanted a sign just like that. She began to write in big, serious letters. Bean's last name was really long. It was so long that sometimes she mixed up the letters. Bean got another piece of paper. Bean, she wrote in big, serious letters. Good. Private. Good. Investigator. Oops. Instigator. Bean got another piece of paper. Bean. Good. Pivot. Bean got another piece of paper. Bean. Good. Pivot. Bean got another piece of paper. Bean. Good. P. I. Good. Done. Phew. Bean taped her sign to her plum tree. She put her hat on her head. She put her papers and her file folders on the desk. She made her eyes into slits and looked around Pancake Court. She watched Jake the teenager walk out of the house with a gigantic shopping bag. So long, pal, she muttered. She picked up her phone and slammed it down. She was tough. She was ready. She was ready for her first mystery. And if you want to find out what that mystery was, you'll have to read the rest of the book yourself, so ha! Now, if you want to ask me some questions, this is your opportunity, and even grown-ups can ask questions. But kids first, Yes, Purple Kid.
Are you going to make a movie on it?
Am I going to make a movie on Ivy and Bean? I think that that is an excellent idea. Unfortunately, though, the only thing I know how to do is write books. So what we have to do is wait for somebody who knows how to make movies to have the same extremely excellent idea that you and I both have. And so far, like a couple of guys in suits have come, and I've had to go sit in a meeting with a couple of guys in suits, but they didn't get Ivy and Bean. They didn't understand the essential properties of Ivy and Bean. So far, no movie. But there is a musical, you guys. There's a great little musical called Ivy and Bean, the musical, currently playing in, rather inconveniently, Orlando, Florida. But still, it exists. Yes, sir?
Are you going to make any more books?
Am I going to make any more Ivy and Bean books? Well, I don't know. I know I'm taking a break next year because if I was going to have another book come out next year, I would have had to have already written it. So next year there won't be an Ivy and Bean. But I did just get this really cute idea, and I do love Ivy and Bean, so I don't know. I can't say, but you might have to wait a while. Yes,
What
ma'am?
year did you start writing Ivy and Bean books?
What year did I start writing Ivy and Bean books?
Yeah.
2005.
A year before I was born.
I know, you guys. When you guys weren't even around. What kind of a place was that? You guys weren't even around when the first Ivy and Bean book came out.
I was.
No, some fine people were there. How many books, like of all the books am I gonna write? Like any books or just Ivy and Bean books? I don't know. I mean, 10 books, look at this stack. I pick up this whole stack of books and I practically fall over. So maybe I'll write more, but there's this little girl who keeps writing to me, and every time she tells me she wants like 137, 138, 139 Ivy and Beans. That would be like, I wouldn't even be able to see over 139 Ivy and Beans if you stacked them up. I don't know, maybe 11. We'll see, not sure. Oh, there's a grown-up over there who raised her hand, very nice.
Although she belongs to me.
Oh, okay, well, we'll go, you're vicarious. Okay, yes, can I help you?
How long does it take you to write a book?
How long does it take me to write an Ivy and Bean book? Well, the whole kit and caboodle, like the whole procedure takes about 5 or 6 months, but I'll tell you what happens. I'm not writing the whole time. The first time I write an Ivy and Bean book, the first draft, takes about a month and a half. And I am typing, and I am laughing. I think I am so funny. I am having such a great time. So I get to the end of it, and I think, this is a masterpiece. I have never seen such a fabulous book in my life. But I have learned a lesson or two over all of these years. And so at that point, I put it into a drawer. And then I leave it there for 2 weeks. I don't look at it. And then after 2 weeks, I take it out of the drawer and I read it, and I think, this is terrible. I better fix this. And I write it again. And that takes a month. And then I put it back in the drawer. Take it out again. There's still a few things that need some work. I fix it again. So I'm writing it. I write each of these books at least 5 times. But there are times it's spending in the drawer of evil. And so it takes what I'm finally done after about 6 months. That's pretty much it for most of us. But some books I have to write. You know, there's a paragraph in one of the books that I wrote probably 85 times and the whole thing, and it took me 18 months to get it right. But that's unusual. Thank goodness. Wait, you already asked a question. Hang on just a sec. Let me see if there's anybody who hasn't asked a question yet, and then I'll get back to you. I know you've got a list there, and we'll get through them all, I promise you. But let me just see if anybody else. Yes, get back there.
Are you going to write a book about a different character?
Well, the question is, am I going to write a book about a different character? As a matter of fact, I'm so very glad you asked me that question, because the truth is I have another book that's not about Ivy and Bean. You don't have to have a copy of The Magic Hat, do you? Okay, she might have a copy of The Magic Hat. Simply splendid book I wrote for slightly older kids. It's about a girl named Mary who has this terrible life because she is the middle child between 2 sets of twins. She not only has older twin brothers, the poor kid has younger twin sisters. So of course, her life is scarcely worth living. And one day she finally loses her mind and hits one of her brothers over the head with a shovel and is of course sent to her room immediately. And at that point, when she's in her room, she notices something. She notices that on her wall, there's a piece of glass that's taped to the wall. And she picks it up off the wall. Oh, it's a lens from a pair of glasses. Well, she holds it up to her eye and goes back in time 75 years. And the story is about what happens when she meets the people who live in her house in 1935. And it just so happens that this very week I closed the deal for the sequel to The Magic Hat. So that is the next kid's book that will be coming out from me. Yes.
Are you Ivy or are you Bean?
Am I Ivy or am I Bean? Well, my mom's back there. Okay, Mom, tell me if this is a lie or not. I think I'm a combo because I do like to read big books, but I also like, even now, I still like to run around and yell and scream. Thank you, Esme. So I think it's both. What do you say, Mom? Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a combo. And your kids? My kids think it's all about them. And I do have one daughter with curly red hair, and she used to wear a sparkly headband, and she did make potions. And I do have another daughter with short brown hair who likes to run around and yell and scream. But I would not say, it's not about them either. It's not about any one, there's no one-to-one correlation. Here's the Magic Hat. This is the other fine book that I've written. This is the one about the poor girl who has all those twins in her life. So the sequel to that will be coming out next fall. Do you want to get your list out?
Which Ivy Dean book is your favorite?
Which Ivy Dean book is my favorite? All right, when somebody asks me this question, I do this. All of them. I hold these books up and I say, have you ever seen such adorable books in your entire life? Look how cute they are. Cute little pictures, so funny, so darling. Who could pick? Each one is more adorable than the last. I could never choose. Look at these. Who could choose? Look. I mean, which one's your favorite?
Either the ninth one or the second or third one.
See? Nobody can pick. Look, here's what I can do for you. I can show you my favorite illustration in the entire series. How about that? That one I can pick, but I didn't do those. All right, here we go. This is my favorite illustration in the entire series. That's pretty good, huh? That's the best I can do. Oh, we got a couple of other questions. So we'll get back to you. We're gonna have some interruptions. Yes.
Who's your favorite author?
Who's my favorite author? Leo Tolstoy. Like a kid's book author.
Yeah.
I really like Jeannie Birdsall. I think she's really great. She wrote The Penderwicks. J.K. Rowling's a genius. I would say those are my two favorites. What about you? You don't have to say me just because I'm here. What books do you like?
I don't know. I like a lot of
You like a lot of books. Yeah, same here. It's sort of hard to pick, you know? Yes. Did you have a question?
I have a favorite book series, but I don't know the author.
What's your favorite book series?
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That is Jeff Kinney. Very nice guy. Extremely nice guy. You want to know something funny about Jeff Kinney? He thought he was writing books for grown-ups when he started that series. He thought it was like going to be a memoir about his life as a junior in middle school. He was wrong. It wasn't for grown-ups. It was for kids. Yes?
How did you become an author?
How did I become an author? Well, this is an extremely uninstructive story. For many, many, many years, I was an editor. An editor is a person who helps writers write their books. And after I had been an editor for about 15 years, it began to dawn on me that the writers were having a lot more fun than I was. And I thought to myself, you know, I could do this. And they're having a great time, and I'm sitting here like putting punctuation in what they do. This stinks. And so I switched. That's when I switched. But I did not write very much as a little kid because I found my own writing to be so disappointing compared to the books that I was reading. And I was always trying to copy the books I was reading. The moral of this story is you should not try to copy the books you're reading. You should write your own stuff. But I didn't become a writer until I was a big old grown-up. Yes, other grown-up back there.
You may have sort of indirectly answered my question, but what I like most about your book, this is kind of a technical writing question, where you write books where kids this age can identify with them, but they're technically well written in
Thank
terms
you
of.
very much.
But you read a lot of kids' books that are not actually, and they either deliberately use incorrect grammar to try to sound like a little kid. But your books are smart, but they're not too difficult for kids to. So I don't know how you thread the needle for this reader age.
I don't think that that's true. I mean, I know books. I know what you're talking about, where that's sort of like weird language is supposed to represent how kids talk, but kids don't talk like that particularly, and kids don't necessarily need to read books that echo the mistakes or grammatical locutions that they use. So yeah, it seemed to me like it's like writing, like Hilary Mantel writes books about Henry VIII, but she certainly doesn't write in the tongue of Henry VIII, right? So why can't you do the same for kids? It works, I mean, it can work that way.
Is it your editing background that knows how to sort of reach this age level though? or-
No, it was totally because I was hanging out with kids.
Okay.
You know, that's where I got the age group. And then the other piece of it had to do with irritation with exactly what you're talking about. Yes, you had a question.
Do you have an editor?
Do I have an editor? Yes, I have a lovely editor. Her name, and actually, this most recent book is dedicated to my editor, my dear editor, Victoria Rock is her name. And we love her very much. And I've known her for many, many years. And our dedication, both me and the illustrator, we had a phone call and we said, to Victoria Rock, mentor, strategist, and fellow subversive with gratitude. So she's a really good editor. But I still think it's more fun to be a writer. Yes?
How did you connect with your illustrator?
The question is, how did I connect with my illustrator? And the answer is, I didn't. I wrote the first Ivy and Being manuscript about a year before they found the illustrator. The Chronicle Books decided that they wanted to publish it, but we didn't have an illustrator, so it took them about a year to find one, and they sent me all these sketches that were just horrible. And then, just when I was about to go into a decline, they sent me this manila envelope, and I opened it up, and what was in it was essentially this picture. And I was, hallelujah, we have found the perfect. Yeah, somebody really, I felt like totally understood. Totally understood when you smile. It's nice to see you. Totally understood exactly what I wanted to do. You know, so that was a really exciting moment.
Because again, they're very nicely done, thoughtfully done.
Yes, well, Chronicle does a good job of that. Yes, in the back.
Are your books distributed internationally or just domestic?
Oh, no, it's international. You may purchase these books in Italian, Hebrew, Korean, Chinese, German, and I just got the list of the names that they're going to use in the Norwegian, Swedish, and Finnish versions, which are so hilarious. There's a set of twins in here called Ruby and Trevor, and they're going to be turned into Ragnar and Yula. So I'm very pleased about that. It makes me feel like I'm in a Wagner opera or something. Yes.
So when you said you write it and then you put it away and then you come back to it to kind of revise it, do you really honestly rewrite it? Like you don't revise it, you kind of honestly start from the beginning all over again?
For me,
That
if
works
I just sit with, if I am reworking a manuscript that's already written, I will accept things that are not acceptable. So I start with a blank page. Yeah, I mean, you know, come on, it's not that long of a book. I don't know if I would do that if I was, you know, working on 1,500 pages. Yes.
Now you're saying that babies are the hair of the babysitter, that you did, it's based on something that you did for a book to your babysitter. What do you think?
You want to hear that story? Okay. She wants to hear what the horrible thing was that I did to my babysitter that we based Take Care of a Babysitter on. Now, you people back there to whom I'm related, you just be quiet. Okay. Okay, so here's what happened. I grew up in a house with a closet filled with lovely, clean sheets and towels. At the top of this closet, with the lovely, clean sheets and towels, was a hole with a board over it. And all my life, from the tiniest child, like the very first memories I have are practically of my mom saying, "Don't even think about that hole up there. Don't look at it, don't think about it. That's the crawl space. Don't go in the crawl space." Crawl space, you guys, for those of you who are not quite sure about this, is the space between the ceiling of the rooms in your house and the roof of the rooms in your house. That's what was up there. And all the time when I was a child, I would look past the lovely clean sheets and towels to the hole where the crawl space was. And my mom kept saying, don't go in the crawl space. And then my parents made a terrible mistake. They went to Europe. They went to Europe and left me with a babysitter and my best friend, who was my first cousin. This was supposed to be a very sad occasion because my parents had never left me and they were going to be gone for 3 weeks. Very sad. So I said to them as they were leaving, goodbye, Mom and Dad. So long. And they got in the car and backed down the driveway and I said, goodbye. Goodbye. I'll miss you. And they drove down the block and waved. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. The car turned the corner and I jabbed my cousin in the ribs and I said, crawl space! And we ran inside as fast as we could go. And we climbed past all those lovely clean sheets and towels and we got to the very highest shelf and we banged the board up into the crawl space and a mountain of dirt fell out of the crawl space onto our heads. And my cousin and I looked at each other and said, this was not as fun as we expected. So we dusted ourselves off and climbed down and looked around. It was very unpleasant in there. It had been pleasant a few moments before, and it was very unpleasant in there, so we left and closed the door carefully behind us and went on to do something else. And the babysitter, very soon, opened the closet to get a lovely clean sheet or towel, and a gigantic mountain of dirt fell out on the babysitter. And plus, she more or less had to spend the 3 weeks cleaning the lovely sheets and towels, so there wasn't any more dirt on them. And do you know what the moral of this story is?
What?
Don't go on vacation, you guys. Stay home.
Yeah.
If you've got crap in your crawl space, don't leave the house. Because your kids will want to go
What was
there.
in the crawl space?
Well, actually, I thought it was dirt, but it was something even more horrible. It's this stuff called fiberglass that I don't think they use anymore. It's like having a blanket inside the top of your house so that the warmth stays in. Nasty stuff. Probably really bad for you. I mean, I guess as a grown-up, here, I'll be a grown-up. Don't go in this crawl space, kids. There. That was just my one grown-up moment. Yes?
How did you get the idea of putting the book on the draft away for 2 weeks?
Well, because the question is, how did I get the idea of putting the first draft away in the drawer for 2 weeks? Because, and you can see that I've written, a fair number of books here. Because the first couple of times when I was thinking, what a masterpiece this is, what a gem this work is. My goodness, anybody who reads this is going to think it's perfect. I made the mistake of actually sending it to my editor at that point. And she informed me that it was not perfect, it was not a gem, and I really needed to do some more work on it. So after that happened a couple of times, I realized that I shouldn't listen to my first thought. I should put it someplace else
And you
rethink
figured
it.
out that after you read it again, it started to get boring.
Well, yeah, after I had not looked at it for a little while and then looked at it again, I could see things that I had not been able to see before.
You want to feel like it's the same book, but you really like it the second time.
Yes, exactly. Are you a writer? Do you write? Do you know about this? You sound like you know what you're talking about.
What kind of a plan, or do you make a plan, a storyboard, something to begin?
I do. The question is, do I make a plan when I'm writing? Yes. Especially for an Ivy and Bean story, I have to know what's going to happen pretty clearly before I start writing, because I thought it's such a tight ship. You can't. I've only got about 8,000 words, so I know the arc. I know how it's going to end, but I never know exactly where I'm going to begin. And that's always my favorite part, is when I sit down for the very first day and start typing the first line. It's always such a pleasant surprise to find out where I'm going to start the story. With other books, with longer books, it's less of a tight plan. But it's also my publisher makes me do a plan. before I start, which is good. Yeah, they need to know. Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite book that you've ever read? That's one of your books.
Oh, one of my favorite books that I've written?
Yeah.
I can't, I mean, like I say, once you've written them, they're like your own babies. They're your own darlings. I could never select one. They're all fabulous.
What about your favorite authors and books of adult literature?
Oh gosh, every time anybody asks me that question, I practically have heart palpitations. I can never, I mean, you know, I'm always fascinated by what I'm reading. Right now I'm reading Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. Great book. But last week I was reading The Silent Wife by S.A. Harrison. Great book. You know, I go through long phases. I read a lot of Victorian novels. I read a lot of contemporary fiction. So, I mean, I'm reading a lot of different stuff all the time. I would say that, you know, big, long, whopping 19th century novels are probably my favorites. Do you have more on your list? Okay, let's go.
I was gonna do who was your favorite author, but somebody already.
Yeah, somebody already got that one.
Do you write other books?
Do I write other books? Yes, you can see I wrote this one and then I've written the sequel to that, but then I have to admit I do write for grown-up people. I wrote a book, it's around here someplace, called The Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society, if you can remember all. Think of having a title that long. And I am writing another book for grown-ups, another novel for grown-up people that'll be coming out in the spring of 2015. So yeah, I got lots of things to write. Do you have more? Anybody else got a question? All right, I think we're all done with the questioning part. How about if we go to the signing part, okay?